Investigators' search of a cell phone data before obtaining a search warrant was the topic of a motions hearing today in the case of Alfredo Castellanos Rosales. He is charged in the 2023 murder of Jordan Beardshear. Castellanos Rosales is charged with first-degree murder in the April 2023 death. Beardshear was found dead inside her apartment in Dakota Dunes. The infant son she shared with Castellanos Rosales was missing at that time. Now, today in Union County Court, testimony was heard over two separate motions filed by the state of South Dakota. In the first, a person who worked with Castellanos Rosales at Tyson Foods in Dakota City recalled a conversation he had with Castellanos Rosales the week before the killing. The co-worker said Castellanos Rosales looked, quoting now, sad and upset when talking about his relationship with Beardshear, and that they had been having issues with their relationship. Another motion surrounded investigators' use of Castellanos Rosales' cell phone data before they had obtained a search warrant for it. Investigators with the South Dakota Department of Criminal Investigation pinged his cell phone after realizing the infant he shared with Beardshear was missing. That infant later found safe at Beardshear's relative's house, dropped off the night of the murder by Castellanos Rosales. Now, the trial for Castellanos Rosales is set for February 25th in Union County, South Dakota. Meanwhile, the woman you see here, Castellanos' wife, Raina, has entered a plea of not guilty. That's ahead of a court hearing in district court this morning. She's accused of helping her husband flee the country. She is charged with 2 felony counts of being an accessory to murder. Her pretrial hearing is set for November 1st at 9 in the morning. She remains jailed on $1 million bond. The